And welcome back to Beyond the A-League. I'm your host, Aaron Beggs. And on today's episode, I am going to review all of the action from the NPL New South Wales competition round 3 and a preview of round 4. Also, I'm going to continue the series of Australia's most well-known football clubs. And this week I've got one that's close to my heart. Anyway, stay tuned. Come back after the break and we will get into all of the round 3 action. And round 3 of the NPL New South Wales kicked off on Friday night and with 3 games, and we start our wrap with Western Sydney Wanderers taking on Sutherland, and it was the Sharks that come out on top in this one with a 1-0 win after Daniel Wong scored in the 14th minute. As we move on to the next game and we head to Cromer Park in Manly, where it was Manly United taking on Sydney United in what I would have thought would have been a stellar of a game. But unfortunately, for all of the punters that made their way out to Manly for this game, we were left somewhat unfulfilled with the final result of the game being a 0-0 draw. We head to Barton Park and St George FC welcoming the new boys Mount Druitt Town Rangers. And it was the away team that got the win in this one, but it wasn't until the 39th minute that they took the lead through Caleb Jackson-Brown. It was the home side that came out firing on all cylinders for the second half, and it didn't take long before they equalised through Jaden Casella in the 51st minute. And 6 minutes later, it was a home side again that took the lead with substitute Evangelo Souris scoring their second, making it 2-1. But it was the new boys that didn't give up, and in the 78th minute, Joao Pedro Oliveira Santos scored their second, and just 4 minutes later, John Azar put them ahead to end the scoring 3-2. Great win there for the Mount Druitt team. On to Saturday's games, and we had Sydney Olympic taking on the Wollongong Wolves at Belmore Sports Ground, and in what was Wollongong's basically third game of the last week, since their second round game was postponed after just 31 minutes last Friday, and they had to play what remained of that game on Wednesday night, which they won 3-0. But it wasn't to be in this game, and it ended in a 0-0 draw. Another disappointing game there by Sydney Olympic. We also had the NPL New South Wales Grand Final replay between Rockdale and Marconi at Rockdale Sports Centre on Saturday evening, and it was an entertaining game with the visitors coming out on top in this one. The Stallions went ahead early in the game with a Franco Maya Valiente goal in the 7th minute, but the home side got back into it just before half-time through an Alek Jurasevsky penalty, sending the game into half-time at 1-1. In the end, it was the visitors Marconi that got the winner in the 79th minute when Kyle Semente won the game for the visitors. Elsewhere in the New South Wales NPL Saturday night, we had what some could say was a result that no one saw coming, and that was St George City FA absolutely smashing Sydney FC 5-0 in a 5-0 drubbing, with goals from Luis Curry, Goncalo Agrelos, Dakota Askew, Fumoto Kamada and Chao Di Guido. I think that's right. Probably not. Helping the home side to a memorable victory. On Sunday, we had 2 games to round out round 3 of the season. And at Lambert Park, it was Apia versus NWS Spirit. And it was the Spirit that took this game by the throat and thoroughly beat Apia by 3-0 with Takumi Ofuka, Corey Kavanagh and Yu Okubo all on the score sheet. You Akubo is scoring for fun so far this season. And to round out this weekend's games, we travelled up the F3 to Central Coast, where Central Coast Mariners took on Blacktown City, and it was the Westerners that put it to the Mariners to keep them on 0 points for the season. Blacktown won this one 4-1 with Mitchell Malia getting 2, Travis Major and Seong Jo Choi, the goal scorers for City, and Luca Pecora getting the lone goal for the Mariners. If we look at the ladder after round 3, we have Surprise Packets, NWS Spirit sitting up top, Sutherland in second, Marconi, Wollongong, St George City, Manly, Apia, Rockdale, Olympic, the Wanderers, Blacktown, Mount Druitt, Sydney FC, Sydney United, St George FC, and the Mariners rounding out the bottom of the ladder there. Interesting enough there, Sydney FC and Central Coast Mariners in the bottom 4. Moving on to my ludicrous picks of this week. If you recall last week's episode, I picked Sutherland, Sydney United, St George FC, the Wolves. I picked a draw between Marconi and Rockdale, Sydney FC, Apia and Blacktown. And unlike my NPL Victoria picks, my New South Wales picks are up the shit. Blacktown, I got that win. Mount Druitt, I lost that one. Northwest Spirit, I lost that one. St George City, I lost that one. Marconi won, I lost that one. And the 2 draw games I lost, and Sutherland I won. So that's 2 out of 8 for me this week. Hopefully next week I do a bit better. I highly doubt it. NPL Victoria, I can't seem to not pick winners there. If we move on to the round 4 action coming up this weekend, there is no Friday games. So most of the games are on Saturday, with 6 out of the 8 games being played. Sutherland are taking on Olympic at PointsBet Stadium. Mount Druitt are taking on Rockdale at Popadenta Park. Sydney United take on the Wanderers at Sydney United Sports Centre. The Wolves take on Central Coast Mariners at Wynn Stadium. The Spirit host St George City at Christie Park, and Marconi take on the other St George team, St George FC at Marconi Stadium. And then that leaves the last 2 games of the weekend to be played on Sunday, and they are Blacktown versus Apia at Landon Park, and Sydney FC versus Manly United at Rockdale Sports Centre. Now, I'm going to try to pick around this week, and people, I don't think I'm going to even have a chance here. But Sutherland, Rockdale United, or that's Sydney United, Wollongong, Spirit, Marconi, Apia and Sydney FC to bounce back after that drubbing and beat Manly United. So that's all for part 1 of the episode. Stay tuned for part 2 and the continued series looking at the history of Australian football clubs from New South Wales NPL. And if you're wondering why I keep saying continued series, in my NPL Victoria series episodes, I have Victoria NPL teams, and hopefully this week I'll end up recording one for Northern New South Wales, Queensland and South Australia, and I'll have probably 2 teams out of those 3 competitions to talk about. But just for this one and Victoria, I find it interesting that I'm giving you history of these football clubs. So stay tuned, and I will be back after the break. Welcome back for part 2 of this NPL New South Wales episode. This week, I continue looking at the history of clubs from the New South Wales NPL. This week, I'm looking at the history of a club that's so close to my heart, it's not funny. It's a club that I grew up watching and going to live games. I grew up in this region. This region I still call home. I've lived in Western Australia since 2008, but I still call this region home, and I've got family that still live there. I've got mates that still live there. When I can get back there, it's always fun. And that team I'm talking about is the Wollongong Wolves. Now, a little backstory on Wollongong Wolves. I remember being able to run on the pitch at halftime in the first grade games and chase the wolf competition, where if you won $100. I remember going to these games and playing with friends like on the hill of Brandon Park in Wollongong long before they played at Wynn Stadium. Like Brandon Park now is a campus of Wollongong University. My uncle played for the Wollongong Wolves in the 80s, 70s, 80s. I've got a lot of friends that played for the Wolves in junior teams and youth NSL youth competitions. So I've got a bit of a history with the Wollongong Wolves. They also screwed my local team out of a Champs of Champions final, but that's another story. As I said, this is a club that I grew up with. I still follow. I did pick them to win the competition this year in my first episode. But yeah, if you hear in my voice a little bit of pride, it's like no one picked the Wolves to win the NSL back when they beat Perth Glory, and no one would have picked Matty Horsley to represent Australia. Scotty Chipperfield was always going to represent Australia, but Matty Horsley there, and just other players that come through that I grew up idolising, and going to Brandon Park and watching some of the best players Australia's ever produced play against the Wolves, like a Mark Viduka and a Ned Zelic, and so on and so on. It's just something that's in my memory, and hopefully I can take my son to games like down the track when he gets a little bit older. 5-year-old, he doesn't want to sit there and watch anything. He just wants to go play on a park. So I'll get him around to that in a couple of years' time. Today we're heading south of Sydney to delve into the captivating history of the Wollongong Wolves, a club whose journey is a testament to grit, passion and the unwavering spirit of the Illawarra region. From humble beginnings to national glory, the Wolves' story is one of resilience, community pride and a never-say-die attitude. Our story begins in 1974. A time when football was gaining momentum in Australia. A group of passionate locals in Wollongong, eager to have a team to call their own, founded the club initially as the Wollongong City Wolves. They envisioned a club that would represent the strength and spirit of the Steel City, a team that the entire region could rally behind. The early years were about building a foundation. The club competed in local leagues, gradually gaining experience and building a loyal following. The name Wolves quickly becomes synonymous with the team, reflecting the region's rugged landscape and the tenacious spirit of its people. The 1980s saw the Wolves begin to make their mark on the state stage. They climbed the ranks of the New South Wales football system, earning promotions and establishing a reputation for a hard-working, no-nonsense style of play. This era also saw the emergence of some of the club's early heroes, players whose names are still spoken with reverence by long-time supporters. The late 1980s brought a significant turning point, entry into the National Soccer League. This was a huge step for the club, providing an opportunity to compete against the best teams in the country. The Wolves embraced the challenge, quickly proving they were a force to be reckoned with. The NSL era was a roller coaster ride for the Wolves. There were highs and lows, triumphs and heartbreaks. The club experienced periods of immense success, winning the NSL championships in 99-2000 and 2000-2001, cementing their place among the elite of Australian football. These victories were not just wins for the team, they were wins for the entire Wollongong region, sparking celebrations that echoed throughout the Illawarra. The Wolves' success in the NSL also brought national recognition. Several players went on to represent Australia, further boosting the club's profile and cementing its legacy. However, the NSL era also brought its challenges. Financial pressures and the ever-changing landscape of Australian football meant that the Wolves, like many other clubs, faced periods of uncertainty. The NSL eventually gave way to the A-League, and the Wolves, unfortunately, were not part of the initial setup. This was a difficult period for the club and its fans, but the Wolves' spirit remained unbroken. They returned to the state leagues, determined to rebuild and fight their way back to the national stage. The club's strong connection to the community proved to be its greatest asset during this time. The fans rallied behind the team, providing unwavering support and ensuring that the Wolves' flame continued to burn bright. In recent years, the Wolves have continued to be a force in the National Premier Leagues, New South Wales. They've won titles and competed for national honours, demonstrating their commitment to excellence. The club remains a vital part of the Wollongong community, providing opportunities for young players to develop their skills and pursue their dreams. The story of the Wollongong Wolves is a story of resilience, community pride, and the enduring passion for football that's in the Illawarra region. It's a reminder that even when faced with adversity, a pack united can achieve great things. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the heart of the Wollongong Wolves. I remember, as I said at the start, when they won those two back-to-back NSL championships. Winning on a penalty shootout over here in Perth was astounding. Unfortunately, when we were part of Oceania, and the winners of the NSL got to go and play, as I said, with the South Melbourne thing the other day, got to go play against in the World Club Championships. Unfortunately, Wollongong never got to do that. They never got to play in that championships. If they did, I think we could have caused some upsets. They didn't let us do it. And here I'm saying us. I had nothing to do with it. I just went and watched. But they're a team that should be in the A-League. Like the Illawarra region for football is, without doubt, a very big part of Australian football. We've got the oldest club in Australia that play that coming out of the Illawarra region. We've got actually 5 of the oldest clubs in Australia that come out of that Illawarra region, with Balgownie being the oldest, founded in 1883, and then Woonona, Bulli, Helensburgh and Corrimal all being founded in the late 1800s. And I think that's sometimes forgotten with the Illawarra region. Like, there's that many fans. Like, there's well and truly over 1 million people based around Wollongong. Like, it's like Newcastle have got a team, but there's more people in Wollongong than there are Newcastle. It's just common sense. I'm glad they're going to be part of the foundation clubs for this new Australian Championships. I don't agree with the Australian Championships. I think they need to do a proper second division, and I understand money, but they need to do a proper second division so it's a home and away season, and there's a promotion relegation so the A-League teams have something to play for, because let's face it, there's nothing for them to go, there's nothing for Brisbane Roar to go, we're going to get relegated. No, we're not. It's a ridiculous system. But that's another rant for another time. But just this Wollongong Wolves should be part of that A-League teams. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure people that listen to this will probably agree with me. Anyway, that's all I have time for with this episode of Beyond the A-League. Again, I'm your host, Aaron Beggs. Hit us up on the socials. They'll be on the screen now. If you like what you hear, give us a subscribe, give us a like, give us a comment, and I will be back probably Wednesday after the Monday night game of the NPL Victoria with the NPL Victoria episode, and later on in the week with a recap of the Northern New South Wales, Queensland and South Australia. First rounds of those, second round for Northern New South Wales and first rounds for those other two. So I will be back then, and thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you later.